Question 1. The predominant theory suggests that when a Sandblast administrator deploys threat emulation in an environment with high sensitivity to zero-day attacks, it's crucial to evaluate the nature of sandbox evasion techniques used by advanced persistent threats apps. Suppose Isprayer is tasked with configuring Sandbox for defense contractor where files might be delayed for analysis. She configures threat emulation to prioritize detection accuracy, delivery speed. Given that, she disables failopen mode and sets emulation timeouts to strict threshold. What is the most critical risk associated with her configuration? A. The network may experience high EP utilization due to excessive emulation load. B. Legitimate user files may be quarantined or delayed, disrupting operations. C. Threat extraction may override the sandbox results, nullifying emulation decisions. D. Emulated threats may bypass detection due to stricter time thresholds. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Disabling failopen mode in a high-security environment increases detection efficacy but introduces latency risks, especially when emulation takes time or results are delayed. According to checkpoint threat prevention best practices and the Infinity architecture principles, this may impact productivity as users must wait for safe file versions. Option A is a possible side effect but not the most critical. Option C is incorrect because threat extraction complements, not overrides, threat emulation, and D misunderstands that stricter thresholds limit delivery, not detection. Question 2. To illustrate this point, Carlos is implementing a threat extraction policy for an enterprise where executives frequently receive contracts in PDF and Microsoft Word formats. He configures Sandblast to apply content disarm and reconstruction (CDR) in proactive mode, removing potentially active content before delivering sanitized files. Which of the following best describes the intended benefit of this strategy? A. It enhances zero-day detection by analyzing file behavior in a virtual sandbox. B. It prevents browser-based attacks by blocking malicious JavaScript on web pages. C. It strips files of embedded malicious elements before they can be executed. D. It integrates with DLP to prevent sensitive data from leaking externally. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. CDR focuses on sanitizing potentially malicious content in files like macros, embedded scripts, or dynamic objects. This method doesn't rely on detection, but instead applies proactive prevention model as defined in checkpoint threat extraction documentation. Option A relates to threat emulation. Option B is part of anti-bot web control, not extraction. Option D refers to data loss prevention, which is not directly linked to threat extraction. Question 3. From the perspective of secure file handling, what distinguishes the threat emulation process from traditional antivirus AV solutions when handling unknown file types received via web download? A. Threat emulation scans files against updated signatures to detect polymorphic malware. B. It examines files in real time using client-side heuristic modules. C. Threat emulation uses dynamic behavioral analysis in a virtual environment to detect threats. D. It quarantines files on the endpoint using Sandblast agent controls. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Threat emulation uses virtualized sandboxing to execute and observe the behavior of files that do not match known signatures. This behavioral method is effective against zero-day and unknown threats, a feature not typical in signature-based AV. Option A misrepresents AV behavior. Option B describes heuristic analysis, not full emulation. Option D relates to endpoint control but not core emulation functionality. Question 4. In light of recent developments, Layla notices an increase in evasive malware targeting HEIS traffic in her organization's network. She wants to apply Sandblast protection against zero-day threats embedded in encrypted traffic. What is the prerequisite to ensure Sandblast can inspect such traffic effectively? A. Enable URL filtering in the security gateway to detect malicious links. B. Configure ATES inspection to decrypt and analyze SALS sessions. C. Set threat emulation to failopen mode for encrypted files. D. Assign user-based rules to isolate decrypted files. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Sandblast cannot inspect encrypted traffic unless it's decrypted first. According to Checkpoint HES inspection guidelines, enabling SALS interception is required before Sandblast modules. Threat emulation or extraction can analyze the payload. Option A is insufficient as it only categorizes URLs. Option C fails to address visibility into encrypted data. Option D is unrelated to SSL traffic inspection. Question 5. During the process of managing policies, Mr. Omar defines a threat prevention policy in Smart Console with layered protections including threat emulation and threat extraction. However, after implementation, some attachments still bypass Sandblast and reach users unprocessed. Which misconfiguration is most likely responsible? A. Threat emulation was set to detect only and not prevent. B. The files are too large for emulation and extraction thresholds. C. The threat prevention policy is not properly ordered in the rule base. D. The mail transfer agent (MTA) is configured in legacy mode. Answer. Correct answer. See explanation in checkpoint policy layers. The order and match logic are critical if a threat prevention policy is not applied due to misplacement in the rule base, i.e. after a cleanup rule or non-matching zone, Sandblast will not process the files. This is outlined in the Threat Prevention Admin Guide, while A and B are valid concerns. C directly explains the files bypassing all Sandblast inspection. D is possible but less likely the root cause unless legacy MTA prevents policy application. Question 6. Throughout the course of routine endpoint protection assessment, Chloe observes that the Sandblast agent is failing to report back incidents to the centralized smart event server. Upon investigation, it's discovered that the communication between the endpoint and management is being dropped. What steps should she take first? A. Verify if SmartLog is running on the security gateway. B. Confirm that the Sandblast agent is installed on the correct version of Windows. C. Check if port 443 or 19009 is open between endpoints and smart event. D. Run cptap command on the endpoint to verify disk usage. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. For communication between Sandblast agent and management, specific ports like 443 HES or 19009 agent communication must be open. According to Checkpoint endpoint connectivity documentation, closed ports will break telemetry and reporting functions. Option A is unrelated to endpoint logs. Option B is a compatibility issue, not network. Option D checks disk, not connectivity. Question 7. Examining the consequences of improper licensing, Mr. Gabriel deploys Sandblast across several gateways, but fails to apply threat extraction licenses to remote branches. Despite policy being pushed successfully, users report receiving unsanitized documents. What is the most probable reason for this behavior? A. The threat emulation license overrides extraction functionality. B. Threat extraction is only active when explicitly enabled in global settings. C. The license does not cover gateways without proper entitlement. D. Extraction only works when documents are PDFs or Office files. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Sandblast requires valid licensing per gateway for each feature. Without a threat extraction license, even if policy is deployed, the functionality won't execute per checkpoint licensing model documentation. Option A is incorrect. Licenses are feature specific. Option B is misdirection. Policy governs behavior, not global setting. Option D is limitation, but not the primary cause here. Question 8. From a practical standpoint, what is the main advantage of using threat emulation in a private cloud deployment as opposed to using Checkpoint's public cloud sandbox? A. It reduces CPU load on the security gateway by delegating to the cloud. B. It improves emulation speed by avoiding external communication. C. It ensures compliance by keeping sensitive files in the internal network. D. It allows integration with third-party antivirus tools. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Deploying threat emulation in a private cloud ensures data sovereignty and regulatory compliance, especially under laws in GDPR or HIPAA, which restrict sharing files with external entities. Public cloud services may breach such laws inadvertently. Option A and B, are partially true but not exclusive to private cloud. Option D is unrelated to emulation. Question 9. In what ways can a Sandblast administrator use threat emulation reports to enhance the incident response process during a suspected breach? A. By using sandbox logs to correlate known CVEs to patch systems. B. By scheduling automatic deletion of emulation files to preserve disk space. C. By extracting reports into CSV and importing into DLP dashboards. D. By blocking outbound HET's traffic for all emulated files. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. Threat emulation reports include detailed behavioral data and CVE associations, which can help security teams correlate vulnerabilities with endpoints and initiate patch management. This aligns with Checkpoint's incident response guidance. Options B, C, and D don't align with incident response principles or best practices. Question 10. Considering the evidence as to Roshi configures Sandblast's threat extraction to convert PDA mode, a user reports receiving a document missing key layout elements. Which technical limitation is most likely the cause? A. Sandblast does not support Office 365 formats in PDF mode. B. The original file had dynamic content not transferable PDF format. C. The Smart Event Correlation Unit was offline. D. PDF conversion is incompatible with DNS level file handling. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. When threat extraction uses a convert PDA mode, it removes all active and dynamic content, scripts, forms, embedded media to generate sanitized, static PDF. This is by design to ensure safety but may affect formatting or interactivity. Option A is incorrect. Office formats are supported. Option C is unrelated. Option D misunderstands how file inspection works. Question 11. Upon closer examination, Tatiana observes that certain attachments delivered via email are being scanned but not sanitized, even though the policy includes threat extraction in active mode. After a deep dive into the logs, she discovers that PDF documents with embedded fonts are delivered without modification. What is the most likely technical explanation for this behavior? A. Extraction is disabled in Mail Transfer Agent (MTA) mode for internal emails. B. Threat emulation must occur first before extraction activates. C. PDF files containing only embedded fonts and no active content are not sanitized. D. The file size exceeded the limit set for threat emulation. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Threat extraction only acts on active content such as macros, embedded objects, and scripts. PDF files with only static fonts are considered safe and therefore not modified. This behavior is consistent with Checkpoint threat prevention behavior standards. A is false. The EAMO still applies extraction. B is incorrect. They are independent. D relates to emulation limits, not extraction. Question 12. By comparing deployment strategies, Rajiv configures a Sandblast standalone appliance to handle both threat emulation and extraction without offloading to a security gateway. What is the main operational drawback of this approach in a high-throughput environment? A. Logs cannot be generated in Smart Event for standalone appliances. B. License validation fails due to lack of cloud connectivity. C. File processing can create bottlenecks due to centralized inspection. D. Threat prevention cannot be applied to outbound traffic. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. When threat prevention is centralized in a standalone Sandblast appliance, all inspection passes through a single point. This introduces scalability issues and possible performance bottlenecks, particularly in high traffic environments. A is incorrect. Smart Event still logs. B is misleading. Appliances can validate licenses offline. D is false. The outbound inspection is still viable. Question 13. Given the circumstances, Elias notices that threat emulation occasionally allows delivery of suspicious files during periods of high traffic. He confirms that the fail open mode is enabled. Why might this be necessary compromise in large enterprise? A. It guarantees file integrity by allowing only clean files through. B. It reduces endpoint CPU edge by shifting emulation to the cloud. C. It ensures network performance by bypassing emulation under load. D. It triggers an immediate threat extraction in passive mode. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. Failopen is a performance feature that allows unprocessed files to be delivered if the sandbox queue is overloaded, thereby avoiding network slowdown as trade-off between security and availability as defined in checkpoint emulation tuning guidelines. A is incorrect. It bypasses scanning. B refers to architecture, not failopen. D is unrelated. Failopen doesn't trigger extraction. Question 14. In response to a suspected breach, his Fiona queries the threat emulation logs for AE related to EA split. However, no alerts appear, even though she tested the file manually and it was flagged as malicious. What logging misconfiguration is most likely? A. Logging is set to a log instead of a detect and alert. B. Threat emulation is set to the background mode. C. The PDF file type is excluded from emulation. D. Sandblast cloud logging is disabled in Smart Console. Answer. Correct answer, D. Explanation. Smart Console provides the option to enable or disable cloud-based logging for Sandblast services. Without it, emulation logs may not appear, especially for files processed in the cloud. Option A doesn't suppress logs. B changes how emulation behaves but does not disable logging. C would block detection but not prevent logging of processed files. Question 15. With the advent of increasing use of collaboration tools, Mr. Nikolai configures Sandblast to scan files uploaded via Microsoft Teams. Despite the configuration, files bypass threat emulation. What is a likely technical reason for this issue? A. Teams traffic is encrypted and bypasses emulation unless ATE's inspection is active. B. Teams files are considered trusted and are whitelisted by default. C. Sandblast only scans email attachments, not collaboration tools. D. URL filtering is disabled and does not trigger emulation. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. Microsoft TSUICHITIS, which means encrypted file transfers, must be decrypted first to the ATES inspection before Sandblast can analyze them. This requirement is outlined in Checkpoint Threat Prevention Architecture. B is false. No default trust is applied. C is outdated. Modern deployment support teams. The URL filtering is unrelated to file scanning. Question 16. Taking into account system health monitoring, what command should HANA use to verify the operational status of the threat emulation engine on a standalone Sandblast appliance? A. cpstat threat prevention. B. Techie show status. Drup. D. Smart log status check. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. ** Techie show status ** is the appropriate CLI command to check threat emulation engine status on a standalone appliance. It reports health, operational state, and queue metrics. A is used for gateway overview, not standalone emulation. C is a debugging tool for drop packets. D is unrelated to threat emulation. Question 17. The correlation between threat extraction and user productivity is often debated. Mr. Isaac is configuring policies for a legal firm where original documents must be preserved. What is the most appropriate extraction mode in this use case? A. Convert to PDF. B. Remove active content. C. Extract and replace. D. Bypass extraction. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Remove active content retains the original file structure while stripping potential threats like macros or scripts. This preserves usability, which is vital in environments like law firms. A. Alters formatting. C. Replaces the file entirely, potentially problematic for legal documents. D. Bypasses protection and is unsafe. Question 18. The underlying principle of threat emulation sandboxing is its use of isolated environments. What is the main reason for employing multiple operating system images in the sandbox? A. To simulate VPN traffic during malware analysis. B. To test behavior in various endpoint configurations. C. To improve speed by running tasks in parallel. D. To increase log retention for compliance. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Sandblast uses multiple OS images, e.g. Windows 7, 10 Office, versions to detect evasive malware designed to behave differently in specific environments. This is outlined in checkpoint emulation concepts. A is unrelated. C is a secondary benefit, not the goal. D refers to smart event settings, not emulation. Question 19. For many years, organizations relied on antivirus solutions alone. However, Checkpoint's threat emulation extends beyond this by offering which key feature: A. Machine learning malware detection on endpoints. B. Signature-based scanning for WebEls. C. Real-time behavioral analysis in Sandbox. D. Network access control integration. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Threat emulation analyzes file behavior by executing them in a sandbox, which can detect unknown or zero-day threats. Unlike static app scanning, A is related to endpoint app, not Sandblast. B describes URL filtering. D is part of NAC solutions, not threat emulation. Question 20. As a result of a misconfigured policy, Isamina finds that her threat prevention policies are not being enforced. Logs indicate no matches for threat emulation rules. What is the first item she should check? A. That the threat emulation blade is enabled on the gateway. B. Whether TTS inspection is active for encrypted traffic. C. If threat extraction is interfering with emulation. D. Whether the policy layer is installed and ordered correctly. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. A common mistake in threat prevention is that the policy layer is created but not properly ordered or installed on the gateway. Checkpoint documentation emphasizes that policy installation and match order are critical for functionality. A is also important but comes after confirming rule application. B is traffic specific. C is incorrect. They're complementary. Question 21. Within the framework of Sandblast's integration with the Checkpoint Infinity architecture, Mr. Jackson needs to ensure seamless threat intelligence sharing between Sandblast and other security gateways. Which mechanism best facilitates this intercomponent communication to improve zero-day threat detection across the enterprise? A. Shared threat cloud database synchronization. B. Direct API calls between Sandblast and SmartEvent. C. Distributed firewall policy enforcement. D. Centralized log forwarding to an external SIEM. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. Sandblast integrates with the Checkpoint Threat Cloud, a shared centralized threat intelligence database that aggregates sandbox findings from multiple sources, enhancing detection of zero-day threats enterprise-wide. This synchronization enables real-time sharing and quick blocking of emerging threats, while API calls B and log forwarding D are part of management and monitoring. They do not facilitate real-time sharing as effectively as C is. A firewall enforcement method, but unrelated to threat intelligence sharing. Question 22. How might one explain the impact of enabling user and group-based policies in Sandblast when managing threat emulation? Mr. Sanjay applies different sandboxing policies for executives and general staff. What is the primary advantage of this approach? A. It allows granular control over file inspection priorities per user risk profile. B. It eliminates the need for global policies, reducing policy complexity. C. It automatically disables threat extraction for low-risk users. D. It increases throughput by bypassing sandboxing for most users. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. User and group-based policies allow administrators to tailor security settings based on risk profiles, applying stricter sandboxing or extraction rules to high-risk groups, e.g. executives, and lighter policies to others. This improves security posture without sacrificing usability. It does not eliminate global policies. B. Nor automatically disable extraction. C. Nor is designed primarily to throughput by bypassing. D. Question 23. Despite the fact that Sandblast's threat emulation effectively detects advanced malware, Mr. Julian notes that some sophisticated threats remain undetected. Which scenario best explains how some zero-day malware can evade sandbox detection? A. Malware that only activates when triggered by specific user actions or environments. B. Malware that uses signature-based evasion to bypass antivirus engines. C. Malware that exploits unpatched gateway vulnerabilities. D. Malware that relies on DNS tunneling for command and control. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. Advanced threats can use sandbox evasion techniques by delaying execution, requiring specific user actions, or detecting virtualized environments before activating malicious payloads. This behavior evades sandboxes that have fixed timeout or limited interaction capabilities. Signature-based evasion B is less relevant in behavioral sandboxes. Exploits of vulnerabilities C or DNS tunneling D relate more to network-level attacks. Question 24. In the absence of appropriate licensing, Istakarin deploys Sandblast threat emulation but does not assign licenses to the remote security gateway. What will be the consequence regarding threat detection at their remote site? A. Files will be scanned, but only logs will be generated without blocking. B. Threat emulation services will be unavailable, allowing files to bypass inspection. C. Sandblast will automatically fall back to threat extraction only. D. The remote gateway will forward suspicious files to the central licensed gateway. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Without a valid threat emulation license assigned to a security gateway, the service will be disabled on that gateway, causing files to bypass sandbox inspection entirely. This is per checkpoint licensing enforcement protocols. Option A is incorrect. No scanning means no logs. C and D do not happen automatically and require explicit configuration. Question 25. A key distinction between Sandblast's threat extraction and traditional file sanitization solutions lies in its ability to A. Automatically convert files to PDF format regardless of file type. B. Provide real-time inline sanitization without delaying file delivery. C. Extract only macros and scripts, leaving all other file content intact. D. Remove active content and reconstruct files based on context and format. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. Threat extraction applies context-aware sanitization, removing active content like macros, scripts, and embedded objects, then reconstructs the clean file that preserves the original format and usability as much as possible. A is a mode but not the defining feature. B is partially true, but extraction may introduce slight delays. C is too limited. Extraction targets more the macro scripts. Question 26. The fundamental question is how to handle connectivity issues between the security gateway and Sandblast appliance that result in file processing failures. Dimitri suspects. A firewall is blocking traffic. Which of the following ports is essential to ensure proper Sandblast communication? A. TCP 19009 for communication with Sandblast appliance. B. UDP 514 for syslog forwarding. C. TCP 22 or SSH remote management. D. ECP 8080 for HEP proxy traffic. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. Sandblast appliance requires TCP port 19009 open for communication with the security gateway for file scanning requests and responses. Blocking this port prevents file analysis. Syslog. B. SSH. C. HEP proxy. D. Ports serve other functions but are not essential for Sandblast communication. Question 27. When faced with the challenge of optimizing Sandblast policies for maximum protection and minimal latency, which policy configuration is considered best practice? A. Enable threat emulation and extraction on all inbound traffic with strict timeout values. B. Apply user-based exceptions to disable threat emulation for trusted users. C. Use selective file type filtering to only emulate files with high exploit risk. D. Disable a failopen to avoid delivery of unscanned files at all costs. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Selectively applying sandboxing only to file types commonly exploited, e.g. Office files, PDFs, improves performance while maintaining protection. Applying full emulation to all traffic, A, can introduce unacceptable delays. User-based disabling, B, increases risk. Disabling failopen, D, can cause service interruptions during high load. Question 20. From multiple perspectives, Felipe wants to understand the difference between threat emulations, failopen and fail-close modes. Which statement correctly describes? Fail-close. A. Files are delivered immediately without sandboxing if the appliance is overloaded. B. Files are blocked if sandboxing cannot be completed in time. C. Logs of all failures are suppressed to reduce noise. D. Only files from untrusted sources are sandboxed in this mode. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Fail close mode means that if threat emulation cannot complete scanning within the timeout or due to appliance failure, the file is blocked instead of delivered, prioritizing security over availability. Fail open is the opposite, delivering files without scanning under such conditions. A. Options C and D are unrelated. Question 29. A common misconception about Sandblast's anti-bot component is that it functions only on endpoints. Mr. Ahmed argues that anti-bot can also A. Detect and block command and control CC traffic on the security gateway. B. Scan email attachments for malware signatures in real time. C. Replace endpoint F with cloud-based sandbox. D. Only block files post-delivery after user download. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. Sandblast's anti-bot blade operates at the security gateway level to detect and block outbound CC traffic, preventing infected machines from communicating with attackers. It complements endpoint app but does not replace it. C. It does not scan email attachments directly. B. And does not wait post-delivery to block files. D. Question 30. For the purpose of troubleshooting, Ismaya runs the Sandblast show statistics command on the Sandblast appliance and notices high queue wait times. What should be the first step to mitigate this performance issue? A. Increase the appliance's hardware resources, CU memory. B. Disable threat extraction to reduce processing load. C. Lower the emulation timeout settings to release queued files faster. D. Upgrade the appliance software to the latest version. Answer. Correct answer A. Explanation. High queue wait times often indicate resource constraints on the appliance. Increasing hardware resources like CPU and memory is the most direct way to improve throughput and reduce queue delays as per checkpoint best practices. Disabling extraction B is a workaround but reduces protection. Lowering timeouts C risks fail open delivery. Software upgrade D may help, but hardware is usually the bottom.